I'm just a boy from Kansas out to save the world from chronic disease. And I truly mean that. Nobody is in control of your health but you. I can't heal you. Your doctor can't heal you. You have to heal you. And it's all about having the education and empowerment to know what you need to be changing within yourself, within your life, to set your soul free and accomplish that best life that we all like to talk about. And I truly believe that the greatest medicine of all is to teach people how not to need it. I'm Brendan Vermeyer, the original Holistic Savage. Welcome to the Holistic Savage podcast.
All right, we're live. Hey, what's up, guys? Brendan Vermeyer, the original Holistic Savage, back again for another episode of the Holistic Savage podcast, where we love talking about all things hashtag functional medicine, functional spirituality, functional psychology, functional fitness, and anything that comes of those conversations. So I have my good friend Kendra Perry on with us today. Obviously, in here, she's right there. We're recording. And Kendra, what is up? How are you?
I'm good. It is always fun to hang out with you. I love that we've hung out a bunch on podcasts, on Zoom. I feel like we've hung out a lot on Zoom to kind of continue hanging out with you this way.
Yeah, considering we've never actually met in person, I feel like we have a pretty tight bond. And that's
I think so.
I feel really good about, that the internet. Like, people are so like, the internet's horrible and all that. And it's like, well, you shape your experience and you can totally reach people and make these awesome relationships. So yeah.
Oh yeah. I've made some of my closest friends online, and I think it's cool. Like, and it just makes it that much more special when one day you do meet in person, because you're like, oh my God, I can touch you. It's so weird.
Yeah. Like you just met your business partner, Christine, at the social media conference like a month ago. I saw that whole thing on Facebook. And I was like, oh, like I did podcasts with them and they're all cute and stuff, but like they've never met. Like, it's so special. And then I got to be a part of that moment.
Yeah, I know. And it was so cool because, like, you're like, oh, I hope we like each other, but we loved each other even more.
I bet that was just instant vibes, right?
It was super fun.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll be like that. I feel like I think
we're going to meet in person in the fall, maybe, hey?
FDN conference.
Hopefully.
Yeah, you're going. Are you going?
I'm not sure. It depends if they accept my speaker application.
Well, that was my next question. And if it makes you feel any better, even as the AFD&P director, I haven't been confirmed as a speaker yet. Oh. So I think we're in the same boat on that one. But I'm sure. I have a feeling it'll happen.
I have a feeling.
I'll leave it at that. Well, awesome. So guys, for those of you listening, allow me to formally, and then we're not going to be formal at all for the rest of the conversation. But her formal bio here, which I read this ahead of time and I fucking love it. So let me read it and I'll tell you why. So Kendra Perry is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner who helps up-and-coming health professionals master hair tissue mineral analysis testing, plus consistently generate 10K per month using a minimalist business model. She's the co-host of the 360 Health Business podcast, where she teaches online business and continued education in functional health topics for health professionals. I obviously did not practice this ahead of time.
You're almost there.
Kendra is a passionate outdoor enthusiast and adrenaline junkie. And in her free time, you'll find her scaling mountains with skis, bikes, harnesses, and ropes. For free training, tips, and strategies, you can follow Kendra on Instagram at Kendra Perry Nutrition, or on YouTube by searching Kendra Perry Nutrition. So that was a struggle for me to get through, but you know what? Like, I love that so much, because that is like the perfect, just like authentic, straightforward, like who you are, what you're all about, kind of creating the aura of you a little bit. Because that's exactly what I witnessed as one of your, loyal followers. Like that speaks to you well. Is that a newly formulated bio? That was great.
Yeah, I actually, I just tweaked it before I sent it over. I made a few tweaks.
Did you?
I was like, I need to switch this up a little bit, but most of it that's the one I've been using. And I think it does describe me, especially the last part.
No, totally. Like, so you're somewhere in the backwoods of Canada. up north there, for those of you listening that did not know that. See, I know her. You guys don't, but I want you to know her the way that I know her, because she's so fucking dope. And you'll think she's dope too. So you're in like backwoods Canada, and every time I watch your story, it's like minerals, mountains, minerals, water, minerals, organic, love and stuff that matters in life. Like, I don't know what you're doing, but you're doing it the right way up there, eh?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's I live in a really small little mountain town, just totally adventure based. So that's exactly why I have my business and started my business, because I didn't want to live in a shitty city full of angry people and traffic and just all the thing. I mean, I'm not a city person. So this is I live in paradise. I'm very lucky.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to hop the border and come hang out with you one of these days, because it's just like anywhere there's mountains and rivers, sign me up. Beaches, like, okay, that's cool too, but give me the mountains and the forest, so
or when you combine beaches and mountains, you pretty much have it made.
I know, but then California is so expensive and insane and polluted, and there's fires, and it's just like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I
know it's a thing.
Maybe Portland. I'm going to Portland this month. I'm going to go scope that out. So
nice.
I'll let you know about that one. Yeah, that'll be good. But so Kendra, awesome. We're going to, oh man. So Kendra, as you just read and heard me horribly articulate in the bio, she is a queen when it comes to HTMA testing, or hair tissue mineral analysis, which is something that I use in my practice and is a big time tool in the functional medicine world. Extremely valuable. And, whereas I'm, learning and all of that, she's more on the master level here. So Kendra, who I learned from, or you are who I learned from, it's like, do I talk to them? Do I talk to her? Doesn't fucking matter.
Doesn't fucking matter.
But so, I'm learning HTMA from you, and it's been an awesome experience, and I'm ready to dig deeper into your course. But where the fuck did any of that come from? How did you get so into HTMA? I think that's at ground zero.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think like a lot of people, I have a common story that like I got into health and wellness industry because of my own health issues. Like I used to work in forestry. I used to design cut blocks for logging companies. That's what I did prior to doing this. So I used to just tramp around the bush, follow my face, and tie flags, basically.
That was such a badass synopsis. People
are like, oh, you're like out there walking on trails. I'm like, no, you're fucking bushwhacking and you're falling on your face. Like that's literally what you're doing. But anyway, so yeah, I'd been having health problems for a while, but things got really bad. I definitely went into a burnout mode. And that's when I came upon the FDN course and started doing my training in that. And, as you know, like you run tests on yourself and you figure out what's wrong with you. And yeah, I had a lot of things wrong with me, but after kind of working through all the protocols, I got a lot better, but I was still like so fatigued. Like I had this really deep, chronic, debilitating fatigue, and I was super tired, which is a big issue when you live in a mountain town and the only thing you and your friends do is go mountain biking and climbing and hiking. Like I need like extra energy. Like I can't get away with just kind of mediocre energy levels. So it was like a very isolating experience. So it also made me very obsessed with like figuring out like, well, what's it going to be? And I don't even remember how I came upon it, but I stumbled upon it in like the deep, dark corners of the internet somehow, because it's not necessarily a mainstream functional test.
Right.
And it really made sense to me. So I started pursuing training in it and working with a practitioner. And it's the thing that made my fatigue go away. Like after, it took time, but I learned I had really bottomed out sodium, potassium levels. I had copper toxicity. I was deficient in iodine. I was really lacking some of these really basic things that you need for normal function and that you need in your energy cycle, right? So when I got my energy back, and it happened quite quickly compared to like 7 years of feeling fatigued. And then it took about 8 months to get my energy kind of like back to a place where I thought it was at least acceptable. I was like, okay, like there's something here. There's something to this. And I started digging deeper into it. I started running it with all my clients. I've run like thousands of these panels now. And I just see it to be a really amazing tool and a very affordable tool as well.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
what, like all of $130.
Yeah, and a lot less if you buy direct from the lab. So
Yeah.
it's like, I think the biggest barrier to functional medicine is the cost, and I think a lot of people need it. But I understand why it's so expensive, because testing is expensive. Like, our time is valuable. We don't just do the work in sessions. Like, we do so much behind the scenes work. So it's really, really expensive, and it's a high ticket thing, and I think it should be. But then there's all these people who are in a lower income bracket who can't access it, and I think they need it just as much as everyone else. So I think it just reaches a few more people. It gives people an option to test, maybe when they don't really have thousands of dollars.
Yeah, no, gosh, I love all of that so much, because in a lot of ways, your story of how you got to where you are, very parallel with mine in regards to organic acids, where, a lot of the subjects and, metabolic systems and factors that were causing my health issues, in oat test. So I think that's really cool how that really speaks to the individualized nature of healing, right? Because everybody is looking for that cookie cutter program and that easy, like, how many guys I have come to me, help me fix my low testosterone. It's like, okay, well, there's like 1,000 different ways to skin that cat, bruh. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's a complex investigation that I don't think people understand or appreciate. But the bang for your buck, because I get frustrated. I'm sure you can empathize with this. I get frustrated with a lot of different, functional practitioners out there that, I'm looking through their paper trail after the client comes to me from, a bad experience, right? And you're digging through the paper trail, and it just straight up looks like they just ordered a shit ton of random tests, hoping to find something, and it's just like, that's not the way it works. Like, you take the assessment, but you have to work with their budget, because there are so many people suffering, and they simply don't have, it is so expensive. I mean, I know what they're paying me and you, and I get it, and it's just not realistic. So it's like, how can we bridge that gap? Which, like, I do some different DIY program. It's exactly that. And so I love how you're taking that approach, because you're going to be able to help more people that way,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. There's a lot of sick people. A lot of people need it. Most people need customization, because, I feel like the people we see, like, they come to you eating organic, eating a paleo diet, doing yoga, meditating. Like, they actually know a lot, and they're working really hard, and they feel like shit. So, like, what do you tell that person? You're like, oh, you need to do it better. Oh, you're lying to me. Like, I think you're not being honest. And, like, these people are working really hard. So there's just something deeper going on. And I think, that's why the testing is great. But I love HTMA, because you can it's a really good, cheap, affordable test, get people in the door, get them a quick win, get them a quick result. And then at that point, they might be more invested to maybe purchase higher level testing, because, in the end, like, we probably all want to run a stool test, like, see what's going on in the poop, right?
Totally. Yeah. No, I love that. So with HTMA, I'm like, man, there's 1,000 directions I want to go with this. So it's like, what's next? But so HTMA, minerals are described as like the spark plugs of the body. Do you want to speak to that by itself for a second? I'd love to hear your take.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's exactly right. They're the spark plugs of the body. So they're basically what allows the mineral or the body to work. You're really not going to find a chemical reaction in the body that isn't mineral dependent in some way.
Right.
And the macro minerals, so the primary electrolytes, which is calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, I mean, they are pretty much involved in everything. They regulate your heart rate. They regulate your blood pressure. They, will allow you to create energy. Like, they're involved in so many important functions. And so if they are out of balance with each other, people will start manifesting very specific symptoms, which is really interesting. It's definitely a test that correlates with how people feel and how they experience their health.
Yeah.
And it's not just about deficiency, because yes, deficiency is a thing. We do have a deficient food supply, and we do spend a lot of our times being stressed, which uses a lot of, a lot of nutrients, but it's really the relationship of the minerals with each other right? Because they all have a pull and push effect on each other. So we really care about how they relate to each other, which is why hair mineral analysis is so interesting.
Mm-hmm. And so, HTMA, you're really looking at the mineral excretion in the soft tissue. That's probably like 3 months after the fact, so to speak, kind of like a 3-month average, or how do you?
Exactly. Yeah. You're basically you're looking at a non-invasive biopsy with the hair, right? It's just dead cells. So it tells us about mineral concentration and metal concentration in the cell. And it takes about 3 to 4 weeks for things to end up in the hair. So you're kind of looking at about 3 to 4 months from about 3 weeks before you took the sample, because you're doing about 1.5 inches of hair, and that's generally how long it takes to grow that hair, about 3 to 4 months. So you kind of get this bigger average, which I think is interesting, because I think with a lot of testing we get that moment in time, and it's a snapshot of a moving target, and who knows, like the day you tested may have been a bad day, maybe it was a good day, it may not necessarily be reflective of what's average. So I really like that we get to analyze kind of a bigger time period.
That's a really interesting, I don't know that I thought of it in that way, but you're exactly right. Because, it's kind of like, you've got like HbA1c, which is kind of this like 4-month average of your blood sugar. But that's the thing, that's only one marker. What if you had a marker that was the average of their insulin and their cortisol? There isn't that.
There isn't that, exactly.
So like with blood, you could take 7 blood samples 7 days in a row, have 7 different results, or even organic acids is going to fluctuate a bit on a day. Where I really like that though, because the minerals in the hair, it really is going to be this kind of 3-month time frame. So it's at the end of the day, because here's the thing, I'm a no punches pulled. I like to just get into the heart of stuff, because HTMA gets criticized sometimes as it
gets so much criticism,
not being there's in our industry, there's just so much kind of criticism of like who's, what's best and whatever. But HTMA kind of gets bashed a little bit as like not being reliable. But I have found that you couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah. And it's 100% a misconception. There were a few studies published in the Journal of American Medical Association in the 80s that really poo-pooed HTMA, but when you actually break down the studies and look at their methods and look what they determined, you're like, oh, this is totally flawed, right?
Yeah.
And people are always sending me to Quackwatch. Actually, the guy who runs Quackwatch was also one of the publishers of one of those studies. I think his name is Stephen Barrett. And, when you break down his arguments on Quackwatch, I can debunk all of them. And there's been actually hundreds of studies done on testing minerals and metals in the hair. It's actually been pretty highly researched, and several review papers have found it, analyzing 400 different studies have found it to be accurate. So I think it's just, it got a bad reputation based on a couple studies. As you know, people look at studies at face value and they don't necessarily dissect the methods and what people are actually doing in the study. Sometimes they just read the news headline.
Right.
And are like, oh, this is what science said. But yeah, it is definitely really poo-pooed, and I think it's unfortunate, but that's actually one of my missions, is just to make it more well-known and more accepted, because, everyone's like, oh, hair mineral analysis is inaccurate, but all the labs that do HTMA are held to the same standards of every lab in the U.S. They're all regulated by the CLIA Act, and that's what holds, they get inspected, they get sent samples that they have to test, and they have to meet these regulations just like any other lab.
Yeah, so that's where we need, I feel like I should ship you a foam microphone for this, so that way you could have just dropped it just now. I can't wait to quote you 1,000 times. That one episode of the Holistic Savage podcast, so shut your mouth up about your HTMA criticism. No, but that's so good. I'm so glad to hear all that, because I think when people actually look at the evidence and whatnot, and there's, every functional anything gets bashed by conventional medicine pretty regularly.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. It's like a badge of honor to be on Quackwatch, honestly.
Yeah. First off, I've never heard of Quackwatch, and
oh, really?
I'm terrified now.
Yeah, it's functional diagnostic nutrition is on Quack Watch. Like pretty much like anything that's at any level in the holistic health world ends up on Quack Watch. So
I better go check then.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, that's cool though. So HTMA, we scientifically validated the fuck out of that, I think. So that's awesome. Cost effective, 3 months. Part of me wants to go the nerdy route, but I feel like we should, steer it in a more demographically wide casting, because I want to get into but here we're just going to have to vibe out another time and talk about combining our cool shit.
I agree.
So HTMA though, now you're moving into more focusing on educating. We were just having that awesome conversation before we started recording.
Yeah.
I knew I should have recorded some of that. But so we were talking about now you're really switching and kind of making that professional pivot to really focus on educating practitioners on mastering HTMA rather than working with clients so much, or speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So I, for those of you who don't know, I was actually doing Brendan's role within FDN. Brendan took over my position within FDN when I left. And that role involves obviously like training practitioners, like, in functional health, but also like online business. And I was always in the detective series. I don't know if you guys still do that, but in those detective calls, I was always, talking about minerals and just, sharing what I had learned over those couple years that I was intensely studying it with the practitioners. And people always got really excited about it. People were always, I think, really intrigued by HTMA, but there was just there's a lack of education on it, and which is, I think, probably another reason why people poo-poo it, because there's just not a lot of training programs on it in general. Like, it's really hard to learn it. I had to really fight hard to learn it. Right. So everyone was always really excited about that. And then eventually I started doing the medical director consults for HTMA within the company. And when I left, I still had FDNs and other health coaches reaching out to me to ask for mentoring in it and if they could go over their client cases with me. So I continued to do that privately. And then people were just kept saying you should create a course. You should create a course. When are you going to create a course? I heard that probably 200 times. And okay, I think I need to create a course. And so finally I listened. And then when you had me on for that webinar with FDN in January, it was very much a last minute decision. I was like, you know what? I'm doing this webinar. I'm basically doing this presentation for the exact people who would want to buy this course. Right. I'm just going to launch it as a beta, as a live. I'm going to create it as I go. And that's what I did. And it was the biggest launch I've ever had. I literally I felt like I barely lifted a finger, and it sold so easily. So for me, that was validated. I was like, okay, this is something I can't ignore. This is something I need to be teaching. And so I ran the course. Brendan was a part of it, although I didn't see much on the Facebook Lives. I'll have to say, I'll call you out on that. But I know
Yeah. Well, yeah, I am very excited to dig into it. I will say I haven't been able to tap, but this is all amazing to hear, because hearing you speak to all of that was super special, because I experienced all of it, live. It was a little over a year ago. You were stepping out of the AFDNP director role. I was stepping into it. That's really how, we met.
Yeah.
And so I've been able to watch and experience this whole thing develop organically for you. And as I was speaking before we started recording, it's just been super fucking inspirational and motivating, because literally you are in the same fucking path as me, but it's you're a few steps ahead. And so to see what you've been doing and how well you've done with it and how many people you're helping and inspiring, it's just been hella cool. So to hear you making that switch, I think it's fucking great, and I think that's it's the universe really led you to exactly that, and you're listening, and I'm going to have the broadest reach going this way. I'm going to be able to best serve people this way. So, yeah.
And I think it's just about listening to what people are asking you, or, because it's really easy to get it kind of stuck in your head, exactly where you want your business to go. But it doesn't always go the way you think it's going to go. And I think it's important to listen, you know, and I'd launched quite a few things in the past, and, you know, a lot of them were flops. I wasn't super successful. And I think I was just really out of alignment with what I really wanted to be doing. And when I sort of embraced that, like, this is what people wanted for me. And when I just decided to shed imposter syndrome, because that's probably what prevented me from making the course for about a year. Cause it's, you know, it's deep stuff. You can go down, you can go really deep. It's a deep dive. And so I still don't feel like an expert, honestly. Like, I still feel like I'm learning. When I get on the phone with my mentor, I feel like I have to change the course every call we have. I'm like, oh my God, I have to change everything. Like, you know, like there's always going to be someone who is more of an expert than us. And I just had to sort of like let go of that and be like, you know what, I have enough knowledge to teach this in a basic way. And the course went great. So now I'm just updating that, and I'm going to relaunch it in July. So stay tuned for the updated course, because there's going to be a lot of good updates in that. So if you're going to dive into it, Brendan, wait for the better updated course for sure.
That sounds awesome. And perfect timing. I'm trying to get my organic acid course finished by like early August, and that's like a hard that's a me keeping it real with myself deadline. So
it's a lot of work. This is the most amount of work I've ever put into everything. Like, running that course and creating like 2-hour lectures every week was insane. Like, I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is fun. I love it. I love teaching. But when it was over, I was like, thank God I couldn't do that for another week. It was so much.
Pulled it off like such a boss babe, though. Like, that was some legitimate operational stuff.
It was crazy. And I'm glad, you know, I did it really basic. Like, there was no bells and whistles. I ran it through a Facebook group. And that was great, because then I didn't have to deal with like replays. Like, you know, obviously, like, you're like, oh, I'll just post the replay. But it's like, no, you have to like download the replay. You have to upload it. You have to render it. Like, it's a huge ordeal. And I was like, I don't have time to do that if I'm going to be spending like 8 hours plus a week creating these lectures, right? And editing slides. So, you know, I think for me, I just had to do it really basic. I just had to do it. And now I can make it better, and I'll keep updating it probably always. But sometimes you just got to put something out there and see what happens.
Ooh, I just got like the goose pimples, because I was thinking about how, you know, one thing that I find, and this is what a fucking cool podcast we're doing because of what we both do. Because, you know, we're both doing this thing. We're both operating in this functional medicine industry, which is its own sort of thing. But people just have no idea what the industry is actually like, and what the demands are, the shortcomings. They don't understand the industry. And something that I, you know, find is functional medicine is still such a new and rapidly evolving thing that I think we need more professionals like you that are really locking down onto, okay, instead of trying to be the master at everything or whatever, like, let me not just master, but then advance our understanding of this thing, because it's fucking valuable. It's cost effective, and it helps a lot of people, you know? And that's where I'm kind of thinking like, ooh, you know, you and I might have to do this collaboration with organic acids and the HTMA, because it's just like what that combo can do. Like, who knows? But the way to find out is to track that data over time.
Exactly.
That's something our industry really needs. Is we need data that shows the value, and show case study after fucking case study. You know, it's the scientific research, the literature that everybody loves referring to, but very few people actually read or dissect or correctly interpret or investigate to see the validity. So that's where I am not a literature citer. So that makes me right and everybody else wrong. Let me see the clinical outcome data that you can prove, that you produce. You know what I mean? And that's what you're doing.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that, because just because something was shown to be effective in a scientific study doesn't actually mean it works clinically. And I see that all the time. You'll be like, oh, like CoQ10 helps with like brain function. And then like you got your client who has brain fog, and you're like, I'll just give them some CoQ10 and hopefully that'll clear up their brain fog, and it has zero effect, right? Like, it's just, I find with health, especially, like, it's really hard to study health and nutrition. It's really hard to take away all the external factors that could be playing into why someone's getting results. Like you can't really put people in a vacuum and study them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just so many other things at play. So I think it's really hard to study it. So it's good to know it. It's good to see what's out there, but in the end, you have to test it clinically and see if it actually works.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, something I always teach, you know, the FDN people is like making a case more complex doesn't equal better results, right?
Yeah,
you know, I think a lot of practitioners, not just FDNs, it's just that's who we teach, but primarily, but a lot of other practitioners, it's just like, let's make this as complicated as possible. And it's like, I mean, I'm all for like digging into the nitty gritty deep. That's great, but don't make it more complex than it needs to be. And what is going to move the needle on that person's health? But so with HTMA, you know, you said it earlier, and I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into that to help people understand like the power of it, right? And so, you know, the spark plugs and how they're catalyzing reactions. Shoot, what was my actual fucking question though? See, this is where having ADD sometimes gets you a little off. You know, and you're trying to like yank it back in.
Oh, I do it all the time.
That was it. You mentioned how there's a strong correlation with HTMA results and symptomology. Like, you know, whereas some other testing, sometimes it's like your bacillus bacteria are overgrown in your gut. How does that correlate with your overall clinical presentation? And it's like, that one bacteria out of trillions of bacteria that make up my own unique microbiome. That's professionals listening will get a good chuckle out of that.
Totally.
but HTMA not so much, and I certainly I attest to that, and I'll let the expert speak to that though, because every time I do one of those things, the symptoms that would correspond with that particular imbalance, it always is. And so there's, these different ratios too that we can look at, because, these minerals are, as you said, acting like spark plugs. They, facilitate enzymatic reactions and electrochemical signaling throughout the entire fucking body, every single one of our trillions of cells, right? And like, think about the sodium potassium pump, which potentiates all resting membrane permeability necessary for any cell transduction shit going on. Potassium. So imagine all these others, the magnesium and phosphorus and so on and so forth. So I think, just to make it easy on whoever the hell is listening, maybe the ratios. So tell us about like what ratios there are, and what that, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. I'm just going to grab my plug-in. I'm about to run out of battery. Hopefully we can.
Good. We're going to keep this fucking party going. I got to scale my cussing back a little bit, but.
Oh, I always forget something.
It's all good. I usually forget my dignity, but I didn't today.
Well, I think it's a really good question. And I think and I love that you see that the symptoms match up, because one of the biggest things I see match up is almost like personality traits. Like I can look at a person's panel and be like, oh yeah, like I can tell them how they feel. And then they think I'm a witch and they're like, how do you know that? Because it's like, they're so revealing. But, when it comes to the ratios, like, I mentioned it's the balance. So we always start things with the calcium phosphorus ratio. That's kind of the primary ratio that determines the metabolic rate of the body. So calcium is very much the body's braking system, slows the body down. Elderly people in their end stages of life have a really high calcium, because that's how the body slows itself down. Phosphorus is stimulating. It stimulates the sympathetic nervous system. So the higher calcium gets above phosphorus, the more a person is in a slower metabolic state. They're more in that sort of exhausted parasympathetic state. And when it's flipped, when you have more phosphorus to calcium, you have someone who's more in like a chronic fight or flight state. So, they tend to be the people who feel more fired up. They tend to be the type A personalities, people who take on a lot, who take on everything, who are busy. Those tend to be your low calcium to phosphorus ratio people, which is me.
I was going to say, this is sounding eerily familiar all of a sudden. Like, what are we talking about? Burn her.
Oh my God. I love it. All over the map. Yeah. You're probably like a low calcium phosphorus ratio. And so, and that's really interesting. We actually base our protocol like on that ratio, not primarily, but it does kind of break people up into two categories, like a slow versus a fast metabolic person.
Right.
And, like back in the day when this first was being researched in the 70s, like it was a 50-50 split, right? Like 50% of people would fall into that slower category and 50% were in fast. Mm-hmm. Now it's like 80% slow. Like if you get into mineral testing, like slow metabolic types are your Groundhog Day and fast metabolic types are your unicorn. Like it's crazy. When I see a fast, I'm like blown away and I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. This is so exciting because so many people are in that slower metabolic stage.
Yeah.
Like, where did you come from? Yeah. But, there's just so much crap in our environment, environmental toxins, stress, copper, like all these things are actually slowing down our metabolism and raising our calcium, and pushing that calcium into the soft tissue, which is a big issue for a lot of people. The other ratio that I find really revealing is the sodium potassium ratio, like you mentioned. And, it's the most important ratio. And I would think it's because it controls movement across the cell, right? Yeah. Nothing gets in or out of the cell without a good ratio between those two. But sodium really fires people up. It's very stimulating. Every time you get stressed out, your sodium goes up. So people who have a lot of sodium to potassium, they're aggro, like they're angry people. They're really snappy. They're the high stress people, the people who freak out, who go from 0 to 100 over nothing. And they're like, I don't even know who that was, who just like exploded, like a monster comes out. And, just to give it some context, in really extreme situations, if you were to run HTMA on violent criminals, you'd find sodium potassium through the roof because it makes people angry as fuck.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah. So that tells us a lot. I can usually tell I'm like, yeah, you probably feel really stimulated, really fired up. Like, are you irritable? Are you angry? Do you feel aggressive sometimes? And most people are like, yeah, that's how I feel. Whereas when it's inverted or it's low, it usually represents a really severe loss of potassium. So you have your really bottomed out people, people who feel like they're spinning their tires in the mud and never getting anywhere. They're just running their hamster wheel with their health and nothing moves the needle. That's like your low sodium potassium people. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it's super interesting. And, there's all these other, I hadn't really thought of it as much from the personality standpoint, but it makes a lot of sense. Kind of like, I tend to, it's like, oh, what genetic SNPs do they have? Or what's their neurotransmitter profile look like? Because you're, feeling a little whatever. So yeah, that's cool. And then the other ratios of even giving you insight into infections or kind of immune status. Gosh, what are some of the other ones? I just think it's super fascinating. And I really hope to eventually geek out on, and, I'm a pathway guy. I like to, what's that pathway? And what I think is interesting about HTMA is also a lot of like pattern analysis, right? It's, because it's not a straightforward thing to read. It's not like, and which nothing is. People think things are black and white in lab testing world. They're not, guys. For those of you watching, like nothing is straightforward. You're welcome. But HTMA, it is kind of this art of you're trying to like, and then how does that correlate with clinical presentation too?
Yeah, totally.
And I'm kind of, something that I kind of think is like some of the different patterns and stuff, like, cause or effect, right? And that's always the catch-22
it's question. Always,
medicine is like, is this a side effect or is this a root cause? Or, well, it's kind of both. Does it even fucking matter?
Yeah, that's so true.
But I think like the infections and stuff, okay, so the infection ratio, what is it, like iron to? Yeah,
it's the iron to copper ratio, but I just don't find that it correlates that well. Okay. It's considered a significant ratio, but when it's low, it might indicate a chronic viral infection. When it's high, it might indicate chronic bacterial. But this is the problem, is that often copper is hidden. Like a lot of people don't excrete a lot of copper because their body's in a really weakened state. So you can't trust the single copper marker. You have to look at all the interactions.
Yeah.
And same goes for the iron. Like the iron by itself on an HTMA test isn't the best marker of iron status. You actually want to look at its relationship to calcium, copper, but mercury and lead as well. And I mean, I would always want to look at an iron panel on blood chemistry. It's actually really nice to combine blood chemistry with HTMA. There's a lot of overlap and a lot of blood markers that can tell you about minerals, which is pretty cool. But, you know, I've just never found that ratio really correlates. But what I do find correlates is that sodium potassium ratio when it's inverted, and especially when it's below 1, these are your people with really poor immune function and really low stomach acid. And that's a recipe for infection. So those are typically your people with chronic infections.
Super, super interesting. And it's like to think that you were able to speak to all of that, you know, based on the minerals and everything.
Yeah.
And I was going to say it about blood chemistry because, you know, whereas I feel like I'm still really learning HTMA and getting used to it and comfortable, but like looking at blood chemistry and minerals in the blood is more so my wheelhouse, I guess. But like I'm getting ready to launch this, you know, my official clinical detox program, AKA like I'm just making a web page for something I've been doing.
Yeah, just giving it a fancy name.
Yeah. Well, we'll call it this program. You know, great. You know how it is. Jeez.
Yeah.
But it includes adding HTMA because you know I've done a ton of organic acids blood chemistry side by side. Like I told Karen Hubert with Biobotanical, formerly Great Plains, I had dinner with her in San Diego last year, and I told her like, give me blood chemistry and organic acids, and I can work magic.
Yeah.
But, you know, I want to see that combos, the HTMA, and see how all of that correlates. And that's something I'll have to talk to you about another time. Because I think there's a lot there. I think there's a lot of interactions with, you've got the minerals and the metals, you've got things like oxalates and microbes, but then the vitamins, and there's just so many, and I don't think anybody's really thoroughly
I don't think so either. And I mean, I love the idea of pairing an organic acids test with an HTMA because I think with oats, you can really kind of determine like vitamin status, especially like B vitamins, which are really important. And you don't get that necessarily from HTMA. Like I can make a lot of assumptions about vitamins with HTMA, but that would be really cool to get, you know, some different type of information. And I actually think like an oats plus HTMA plus blood chemistry might be like the bomb-proof combo.
Yeah, that's what, you know, I'll just say it on the air. I'm honey badger. I don't give a shit. But no, that's the Instagram message when I was sliding into your DMs the other day. I'm just like, girl, I got this biz idea for us, and it's gonna be dope AF. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to do that because you know the organic acids, a lot of mold and microbiology stuff and detox pathways and the nutrients and the neurotransmitters, and so it's like that with the straight magic. I'm telling you.
I think it'd be really interesting. I actually just fired off an oats test for myself like last week or 2 weeks ago. So I'll be sending it over to you so you can tell me how messed up I am.
Perfect. I'm due for a retest on my HTMA, so I'll be hitting you up real soon. Well, awesome. So we do you need a hard stop?
I'm good. I'm good to keep going for sure.
Cool. Because I'm like, damn, if I've only got 13 minutes, I got to really make this 13 and save my life here. But so you also do business coaching, and that's something I wanted to talk about a little bit too, because I've seen this, and I also am feeling the call. I'm having more people book in with me for like business advice. I'm like, well, why the fuck do you think I know anything about business? I don't give myself enough credit, but it's not entirely untrue. But I've really seen you, like, honestly, I follow you. Like, you are somebody that, we all follow people, but how many people are you actually paying attention to?
Yeah, probably 5. I think we all have like the capacity to really follow 5 people and pay attention, right?
Oh, totally. It's because of their imbalanced minerals. Obviously.
Yeah, totally. Everyone's ADD.
Yeah, but you I actually do follow, and I enjoy it. You're very authentic and real and genuine and empathetic and, motivating, all these great things. And, I see you really being a great kind of professional, role model and, a lot of things. but business coaching. And you seem to really be enjoying it, loving it. And that's like a big part of your, professional life these days.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been an interesting transition. And I think, we talked about this before we hopped on the podcast, but when I, got into this industry, like right when I started my business, I got hired with FDN. So I started working as a mentor and then eventually running the membership. So I've always been supporting coaches and practitioners from the beginning. That's always been a part of something I've been doing. And when I stopped working for FDN last year, I really felt like something was missing. I really missed working with that type of person. And I was getting a lot of people, I've done a lot of mentoring in business and in functional testing. And it just started to feel, this winter, I started to feel funny. I wasn't sleeping as well. Like something was off. Like, what was it? And I think I was just out of alignment. I realized that, I was trying to do two different things. I was working with health coaching clients and supporting practitioners and wanting to talk about business and marketing. And I was basically creating two separate kinds of content, which is crazy. It's crazy. It's a lot of work. And I was feeling really overwhelmed. I was confusing myself. And after some thinking, I just realized like what actually fires me up, like what do I really want to do? Where can I have the biggest impact? And for me, that's, not only helping practitioners with the HTMA, but helping them run their business, because health coach poverty is a thing. And it's
Totally.
There are so many people who need health coaches. There's way more people out there who need health coaches than there are health coaches. And I don't know, but I think health coaches are the worst offenders for making some of the biggest mistakes with online business.
Totally. Man, this goes right back to that a few steps ahead of me thing. Because now that you say that, I'm like, damn, I hadn't really thought of it like that. I definitely, like I can attest to, like, honestly, I enjoy talking to professionals about building business, because like, I didn't start my career to own a business or build a business. And yet, here we are, and it's been a hell of a learning curve, but I've also I figured out a few things along the way, and it's kind of fun to like talk to other people about it. And so kind of develops organically, but at the same time, I think you touched on something there really valuable about the health coach poverty.
Yeah.
I started my career at like 18, 19 as personal trainer and nutrition coach. And I can tell you, like, there were some hard years in there. And, and the sad reality is, I feel like the majority of health and fitness professionals that I know are not where they should be or could be. And I do think a lot of it comes down to, the business building. But also, one thing I love about you is you just spoke to it in your story yesterday about like how to be, successful. If like people want some authenticity and real. And I love how like you just do that naturally, which is, I think, a big reason why I'm just drawn to you as a human and as a soul is you're very like real, authentic, and genuine human. And it's refreshing as fuck.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And I mean, it's, I think with health coaching, like, a lot of us, we go get our certification from IIN or FDN or wherever. And, we're not taught business, and that's fair enough. Like, that's not these institutions' jam. They're not there to teach business. And I don't know if they could, because it is so hard to keep up with online business trends. Like, what works right now didn't work last year. What works last year doesn't work in 2019. Right. And I think a lot of us get into this because we want to help people. And I don't think we realize right off the bat that what we're doing is actually building a business and building a brand. I don't think anyone got into it for like, I want to build a brand and make $1 million. Like, they're just like, I want to help people. I want to help my family. I want to help my friends. Right. And so I think because we're dealing with people who are sick and not necessarily in the best place in their life, I think a lot of health coaches have a really big block with accepting money in exchange for helping people. I think that's a really big one. They think it's icky, dirty. They feel like, that door-to-door salesperson selling a shitty broken vacuum, which is not what you're selling. You are selling transformation. But, I think there's a lot of blocks in terms of business and money. And I think what it means to have a business online in 2019 is not necessarily what a lot of people realized they were signing up for. Because in 2019, you need to build a brand. You need to be a leader. You need to be authentic and genuine and share your personality. But do that in a place from leadership, from power, and teach, which is kind of like, what the fuck is that? Like, that's crazy. I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk to my cell phone. Like, there's a line, like, you got to.
Why does it come so naturally to me? Don't question it, says the ego.
Totally. And I mean, that's something I've practiced. Like, if you saw my first Instagram stories like 2 years ago, it was super weird and awkward. It was not comfortable. But now it's just, I enjoy it now, but it's been a lot of practice. And you really, you can't just get on there and like be yourself and show your personality. You also have to lead and educate, and you have to kind of combine the two, right?
Right. Right. Oh, that was all just super awesome. You're so right though. And I love what you said earlier about alignment. You were saying something was really missing, and I wasn't in alignment, which actually, the massage therapist that I go see every now and then, she's a hella spiritual. She's going to be on podcast. She's
nice.
super like next level spiritual, like planetarian star seeds and moon and rising over Jupiter's placenta or something. Like, it's super hardcore. But she, gosh, where was I going with that? Damn, we're talking about Jupiter's placenta, and I don't even remember where I was going with that. What were we just talking about?
We were talking about alignment.
Oh, alignment.
Yeah. So I thought you were going to get all like metaphysical there on me, which is great.
Yeah. So her New Year's resolution word was alignment. I was like, oh yeah, like I really dig that. Like and so then I kind of like stole it subconsciously. And so this year I've been really like, Brendan, alignment.
Totally.
It's great though. And I think though my really weird ADD squirrel tangent, forgot what I was talking about, cycle there that I just did was really getting at, I think it's super dope that you are one of those people that can be in alignment with your inner truth, right? Like your most authentic self and your most authentic truth. But, to really commend you, like you're fearlessly displaying it, which is how you get shit done and how you make a difference in this world,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of running a business is just about getting shit done. Like,
totally.
I think a lot of people are really concerned about things being perfect. And like, I put shit out on social media and on my blog with spelling mistakes where the words are jumbled up like all the time. I make so many mistakes. Like, you don't know how many people reach out to me and offer me their editing services.
Oh.
And I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. It's just going to go out there. Did you get the gist of what I was saying? Great. My goal is reached, Right. And like, I think you just gotta make shit happen and get it out there and like fight the fear and fight the overwhelm, because it's normal. It's never going to go away. It just is. You get better at dealing with it and you kind of become more in acceptance of feeling fear and overwhelm, but it's always there and you just kind of have to do it and push it out there. And if you try to aim for perfection, you're just going to procrastinate.
Totally. Have you always been this like just intuitive and in touch and woke, or is this like something that has...
Definitely not. I used to be a very different person in a different life.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, I mean, I saw the leprechaun outfit picture.
Oh, the gold outfit. Yeah, that's from that time in my life. I've definitely not always been in touch, and I've been really out of touch, I think, for a lot of my life. But I think with online business, it really challenges you. It's probably been the best thing for my mental health and my mindset, because you really can't run a business without doing the personal work and getting your shit straight. Otherwise it leaks out in every area and then you just constantly get triggered. So I think having this business has forced me to do some really deep personal work, and that's helped me get more in tune and more in line with what I actually want and how I want to show up in this world, for sure.
Ooh, how I show up in this world. I love that. I was watching that Brene Brown documentary on
I need to watch that
Netflix the other night, and she said some like show up, and that's a phrase that's going around these days.
It is,
like, how are you choosing to show up? But I really like that, because I think so many people are trapped in the muck of their own ego and totally subconscious, sleep at the wheel and everything. And it's like they're not showing up each and every day. And that's kind of the big thing, is like there might be days that you don't show up, what? Totally. But that's okay. Try to show up the next day and the next day, and keep showing up in really living your life in perfect alignment with that inner truth. But that means you have to find that inner truth. And that's hard. And people don't want to do that self-work.
It is really hard. And like, I have 2 counselors and an energy healer. Like, I don't do this shit alone.
Shit.
I need a lot of help.
Okay.
So, like, it's just like, I didn't just like journal and figure this shit out on my own. Like, I actually have to like do a lot of, like, work with people who know more than me.
Right. Yeah. There's something to be said for that. So, okay, let's, maybe a fun way to wrap up the podcast, kind of this final topic that spins it all together. Creatively, articulation. But everything you're saying just resonates with me so much. So with you mentioned the introspection, the self-work that you had to do to be successful building a business, but then we're also talking about the personality typing and HTMA and minerals. So here's my thing. Everybody that I talk to, I always say your health is like a yin yang. And, maybe it's because I was a ninja as a child growing up and I did karate and I was super into martial arts and, on a weird level. But,
I can totally picture it, Brendan.
Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? I'm still probably a closet karate weirdo. Anyways. But the yin yang, people think our health is like this yin yang or yin yang, however the fuck you like to pronounce it. Don't give me shit, people. But you've got physiology, psychology, right? And so obviously you've got to address the physiology because it has such a powerful effect on your mental and emotional well-being, which are so intricately entwined. It's like fucking DNA, and you can't separate the two. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's talk. Yeah, HTMA. You're balancing the chemistry, but you also have to do the self work. And I'm curious with you. You've done both. Like you, in a way, fixed yourself through HTMA, but you also, did that. I don't know. You feel me? You vibing with me?
I know what you're saying. And I think, like minerals affect your emotions, but your emotions affect your minerals. So it does all really play into it. And when I had all my mineral issues, especially the copper toxicity, like I was really irritable and anxious all the time, right? Like I had a lot of ruminating negative thoughts, which is a common symptom of that sort of thing. So that really played into like me being stuck and me not liking my life and, like me being anxious and confused and all these things. So obviously addressing that really did change my personality for the better because it's like I don't really feel anxious anymore unless there's actually something to be anxious about, which, sometimes happens, right?
Yeah.
That's normal, but it really kind of took a weight off my shoulders. But then plus all the, I've done a lot of, it's called EMDR. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Yeah. Basically is the unpacking of trauma with eye movement and electrostimulation, which I've done. And it's honestly, I think for me, like that really led to a lightness in my brain because I let go of all the shit that I've carried my entire life from the things that happened in my childhood. And I think that's true for all of us. Like we don't need to have a traumatic childhood to carry around shit from our past, right? We could have had some insignificant situation that's led to some belief that you downloaded before you were even aware that you were downloading it, that you were holding on and is playing its role over and over and over again in your cells. And that is affecting your physical health, right? So I don't think you can be healthy without addressing your mental state or your emotional health. And I think it goes both ways, right? Like you need to address both.
Yeah.
Ultimately. Yeah.
Do you feel like, because I mean, obviously Instagram in a way is kind of this never ending highlight reel, right?
Yeah.
But that's again where people like you are more refreshing, where, it's authentic without being transparent.
Yeah.
Sometimes like we're not going to give every detail about our life, but we're going to keep it real with you. Yeah. And so, but you seem to just be really flourishing. If I had to describe, like, how do I think my friend Kendra is doing? I'd just be like, yeah, she's flourishing, bruh. You know what I mean? Yeah. Do you feel like, it's going to be both, which is kind of the ultimate point that I'm making here. But do you feel like the emotional work and kind of the reframing, the psyche work, or like the, you know, mineral balancing and more physical, like, which do you think was bigger for like enhancing your quality of life? Or is it really just this harmonious?
I don't think I could have had the results that I had without either of those things, because I had a lot of shit I needed to unpack. You know, from a trauma perspective, I had a lot of shit that needed to be unpacked, but like the mineral issues and the metal toxicity was no joke. So I just feel like it all kind of played into each other, and I did it all at once. So it's really hard to tell which had the bigger effect, because I literally did everything at once. So
yeah, I think, you know, and we're all so full of shit, and we got to own it, accept it, forgive ourselves for being full of shit, because we're humans, and by nature we're full of shit.
Totally.
You know? So don't beat yourself up about it. Fucking own it and start doing something about it. But I really dig that. And that's kind of, so I think the final thing, and then I swear I'll let you go and move on with your life. Like, gosh, this is so fun, and there's so many conversations we're gonna have after this.
I think
obviously. But with, God damn it, every time I do that and I go on that tangent, you know, and it's like, where was I going with that? Oh, so, okay. But ultimately though, you know, getting to the root cause of what is impairing you from being your best self, right? Because I think a lot of the more spiritual or emotional introspective type work, that's a whole other beast. I'm actually having my friend Dr. Nicole, she's the holistic psychologist.
Nice.
Instagram. She's going to be on a show, and we'll get into all of that probably in a lot more depth. But I think the functional work and the root cause work that you're doing in HTMA can be such a powerful tool for. I find it to, and that's why I love functional medicine, is it's a lot of times, like, I find it to be the first step to their best life. That everybody fucking loves my best life, right? But I think, like, as you said, because if you didn't give yourself that energy, you didn't take back your health, you didn't figure out what was keeping you from feeling your best, well, then how can you do any of the other stuff? You know?
Totally. Yeah, totally agree. And I think, you know, and when it comes to root cause, like, there's root causes. I think we're all stuck on like the one thing. I actually hate the root cause, because I'm like, there's not just one thing.
I always put parentheses with an S. Plural.
Root causes, because you know, these things, like our emotions, our minerals, our gut bacteria, like, they don't exist in a vacuum. They're all connected to each other. Like, you know, our body is one big, you know, like, moving river, which is a horrible analogy, but you know what I'm saying. It's all connected.
It's a clump of a trillion cells of organic matter, and like
of scribbles that all connect to each other in a way.
in this weird sphere of universe with it's all, this whole reality thing is really fucking weird.
Totally. So, you know, it's all connected, and I think sometimes you just have to start somewhere with something. But I mean, ultimately, I send a lot of my clients to a lot of other practitioners, because I can only help them with one aspect of health. So I'll send them to a counselor. I'll send them to acupuncture. I'll tell them to, you know, go see a holistic dentist, whatever it is. We can all get along.
I know, right? Like, let's all work towards the you know, mutual problem, this giant chronic, you know, I won't even get on that soapbox right now.
Let's not get started.
Let's not on that soapbox. But awesome. So I think I said at the beginning of the podcast, but where can people learn all the things about you and your
probably the best way to connect with me is on my Instagram. It's just at K Perry Nutrition. That's where I show up every day on stories. Lots of good training videos on IGTV, and lots of little gems in my feed. So that's probably the best way to connect with me. Or probably YouTube is the other place I show up regularly. I post weekly videos, and it's Kendra Perry Nutrition there too.
Cool. Yeah. And do you do I don't know, consults for professionals, or what's that look like if somebody wanted to reach out to you?
So I do. I just added business packages. They're on my website with all the information, but basically I have a business package where I help you start your online business. And then I have a functional testing package where I basically just give you my business in a box of how I work with testing. And, you know, I teach you all the tests, how to interpret them. So HTMA, GI map, Dutch, SIBO, metals, and then kind of send you on your way. Or you can do both. You can do the whole shebang. So that's all on my website. It's just kendraperry.net. Or if you want to learn minerals, yeah, you should join me for my next HTMA course in July, if this episode drops, not after, but before.
I
Not
like
sure
the
when it's dropping.
specificity. Yeah, I'm hoping sooner than that.
Yeah.
We'll see after I get through this next batch of recordings.
Yeah.
Let's see. No, so the course too, I was going to ask, what credentials do you accept for your
anyone can take it. I've actually had a few clients who took it just for their understanding. Now it will affect whether you're able to open an account with the lab, but fortunately you can buy a lot of these things just online. There's a lot of like online stores that will just sell them, so you'll always have access.
Cool. Okay. Literally I'm debating about what I'm going to do with mine, but I was going to ask because, like, honestly, I would love to see more fitness professionals getting into, the space of what we do in whatever capacity is, like well trained and well qualified, whatever. But so I do find a lot of fitness professionals are pretty information hungry, and I think the fitness industry is getting way more scientific than people give it credit for. Frankly,
totally.
Personal trainers are not meatheads that count reps anymore. Personal trainers are, or at least the ones that are still in business and doing it, like, they're usually pretty damn good. But for one thing, trainer poverty, very real thing.
Well, that's a real thing too.
Not having the know-how to build a business, and then kind of getting stuck with giant corporation policies. I love you, Lifetime. I'm not trying to But really, though, if they wanted to ever do anything on their own and maybe have a bigger impact or something. So I'm glad to hear that you accept that, because I think HTMA would be it would be
great. I actually have been trying to convince my personal trainer to take my course, because I think, I think we really need to move past this hormone thing. Like, I just need to see where their hormones are at. And I'm like, well, that's actually not going to get you anywhere. Like, you got to know why the hormones, and like the minerals will provide some of the why when it comes to hormones and like, why certain people can't lose weight. So,
God bless you for saying that. You know how many times a week I try to explain that to people. I'm like, well, I know that you want to do the Dutch test, and that's fine. But, anyways, I love the Dutch test.
Totally.
No, that's cool. I have a lot of personal trainer friends that I would love to hint. I'm talking people. Anyways, but that would be great. Cool. YouTube, Instagram. I'm going to post all your shit. But Kendra, really though, I cannot wait until we do get to hang out in person.
Yeah, it'll be super fun. I'm looking forward to it.
And fun. So definitely I would highly suspect the FDN conference.
Hopefully, we'll see.
In November.
Ahead of ourselves.
There'll be a Halloween party. But if anything, maybe I'll just hop the border and we can hike a mountain.
Totally. I'm always up for hiking mountains.
Well, and also your Holistic Savage shirt it's on its way.
I will be wearing it. I will take a photo.
Tag that, post it all over. It'll crash the internet, dog.
I bet it will.
Awesome. Well, I'll let you go. I'm just gonna call it now. I'm gonna have you back on eventually. So just
absolutely.
That. Maybe
Love
will be about our combined program that took over and saved a million lives, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
Totally. Let's not let the ego get out of control, right?
I know, right? Let's just reel that back in for a second there, guys. Awesome. Well, have a fantastic rest of your day. Absolute privilege to know you, follow you, and I would highly encourage anybody else to check you out, girl.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one, my friend.